Why American stars take on China. Now this is thoughtful. Hello, I'm Trevor Lai in Shanghai. China has a rich cinematic history and a handful of local studios turning out world-class films. But when it comes to television, Chinese prefer Western series or local shows that are copies of overseas content, both of which are very easy to find on video sites. Whether the content is shared through proper licensing deals or uploaded illegally, new episodes of hit foreign shows appear online just hours after they run in the US, usually with subtitles provided by hardcore fans. Today on Thoughtful China, we'll look at how Western celebrities are tapping into their popularity to get better roles in the West or perhaps even in China. Joining me here in the studio is Johnny Galecki, an American actor who stars in the CBS sitcom The Big Bang Theory, a leading TV show both in the US and in China. Also with us is Adam Roseman, founder and CEO of Fenzitang, China's leading Hollywood news and celebrity content company, providing daily TV, online video, social media, and live event content to millions of consumers across China, while helping to connect top artists such as Johnny with their Chinese fan base. Johnny, Adam, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having us.
Johnny, is this your first trip to China?
It is, yeah.
And you've been to which city so far?
Beijing, and then just yesterday we got here in Shanghai.
And what's the first thing that shocked you about the country?
Well, the entire idea of being here is kind of shocking. As a young American, I mean, in your young years, we talk about China as if it's like this untouchable, unreachable place, you know, like it's like a ring of Saturn or something that you can never really get to. And so to be here is really surreal. It's wonderful. It's really exciting.
And when did you first realize or hear that your show, Big Bang Theory, was really popular in China?
Adam kind of explained it to me, and I don't really. It's hard to wrap your mind around. Speaking of surreal, it's pretty incredible. But we do what we do to share it with people, and if it's not shared with people, then it's just pretty selfish.
At the same time, I think the show has really struck a chord with the country, though, because there seem to be elements we've woven into the stories. Yeah. For example, your character, Leonard, actually tries to learn to speak Mandarin. Mm-hmm. And you are now fluent in Mandarin?
Of course. Yeah. We'll save that for the next one.
You've been able to use it quite often the past few days. Do you feel like when you're filming or you're surrounded, back in the Hollywood scene, that there's a real sense that China has become an important market and that show producers or writers are thinking about it consciously?
I think there's a real danger in thinking that way. You know, whether you're writing or whether you're performing, you just have to be honest, and that strikes a chord, you know. But that takes a lot. That sounds very simple, but that takes a lot of the writing towards an actor that can relate to it, and you know, it really has to come from the heart. If it comes from the heart, then it's going to be universally relatable.
And you are now also a producer yourself. I mean, congratulations on the news recently.
Thank you, man.
And so with that hat now on, do you think about this as a potential market, whether it's in the future, not perhaps from a creative standpoint, as you've just mentioned, it could be a bit dangerous, but in terms of a commercial perspective? Well,
of course. I mean, again, you know, you can't really come from it with that approach. I think then anybody would be shooting themselves in the foot. But yeah, I think if you just, with honesty and telling a story, if it's not too esoteric, you want to reach out. I mean, you know, I could recite Shakespeare in my living room in front of my couch, and it's not going to be all that fulfilling. What we do really comes from sharing it with people. There's no such thing, if you're a writer, there's no such thing as a final draft. You know, it's a final draft once shared in front of people.
Well, and I think at the end of the day, aside from the stories themselves. It's really the characters that resonate across cultures. I think a lot of people here in China, a lot of the viewers have compared it to a show like Friends, for example, except that there's an extra layer of, whether you want to call it geekiness or scientific sort of, expertise layered on top, which could be culturally challenging, but at the heart of it, it's the characters. And they still love the interaction, whether it's the relationships or the friendships, So I think that part is probably what's really struck the Chinese audience.
Oh, that's nice.
Did you and your co-stars hear, before Adam obviously brought you here, did you hear any inklings of things like the exhibit in Beijing where they dedicated crocheted animals and characters and sculptures and things like that to the characters from the Big Bang Theory?
No, I'm just learning about that. Even Adam didn't tell me about that. No.
So it's been quite, I think, phenomenal here. And Adam, you've obviously spent a lot of time with your company, Fensitang, as well, cultivating these relationships. So what made you, pick Johnny or decide to work together in this partnership?
Well, I mean, what's phenomenal to begin with is that Johnny's been viewed 1.2 billion times on Sohu over the last several years. 1.2 billion times, and those are just the licensed views in China, not including the DVDs and the unlicensed views. So that in itself is tremendous. And having the opportunity, fortunately, through Johnny's team, who's been wonderful to work with, getting the chance to meet him, sit down and talk with him, and see how fascinated he is with this market, how interested he is in it, and how much he wanted to be here to see and give back to the fans that have become so interested in him and watching him week after week. And I think all of those components together puts him in a great position to do some very interesting things here in China, given his tremendous awareness, given the demographic that's watching him tends to be a higher income demographic that's watching the Big Bang Theory. English-speaking television in general will lend itself to a more educated demographic, but the Big Bang Theory in particular lends itself to one. So I think all of those factors together, led us to be very, very excited to have the opportunity to work with Johnny.
And your company obviously does everything from social media to original live event content. And building networks of fans for your partners. Yeah. So how do you go about selecting what's the correct avenue or the correct channel to launch? With Johnny, for example? Well,
I think with Johnny, again, he had tremendous awareness to begin with, and the key is just tying all of those pieces together, so enabling the fans to get to know Johnny as a person a little bit more. Obviously, they know Leonard tremendously well, but Johnny's a pretty cool person, too, I've gotten to know. So I think having them have the opportunity to get to know him a little bit, extending beyond just his character, given that he's been acting successfully for 30 years in the U.S. This is the first character that they know well, but he's been a tremendous number of other characters, as we talked about prior to starting today. So educating them on that and providing a consistent dialogue so that hopefully that eventually leads to opening of doors for things that will encourage him to be here even more.
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hear from Johnny Galecki, star of the CBS sitcom The Big Bang Theory.
Now, let's go!
Welcome back. Today in our studio, we're talking with Johnny Galecki, star of the CBS sitcom The Big Bang Theory. And Johnny, you now have an official Weibo account and a WeChat account here in China. And obviously you're used to the Twitter world in the US.
I'm not really. No, I don't do it back home.
Okay.
It's never really interested me. It's become, in my opinion, in my own opinion, individually, something that just doesn't interest me. It's become very narcissistic and in many ways. And but when I was given the opportunity to have a dialogue here, have a communication with the people of China, that's a culture. That's an idea that I'm not aware of, and I wanted to have that communication to ask what's going on, what's your favorite technological communication device, right now, or it was a whole different idea as opposed to
just broadcasting.
Just broadcasting, what Danish you ate that morning. I don't care. And if I was ever to think that was so important of me to broadcast, that's the thing. It's, I don't want to be a part of a culture that nothing's real until it's broadcast.
Right. And that's
if it's a part of communication, my mother she had her degree from Detroit in the States of TV and radio communications, and their goal at that time was to make the world a smaller place. And she feels like in that generation, at that time, they really failed. They made it a bigger, scarier place. And so I think we need to be very, very careful in how we go about this. And it's very, very exciting. And there's a lot of galvanizing energy to just get overexcited about it. But, it's that age-old question of we can, but should we? And how do we do this? And it should be treated with some consideration, I think.
Well, I think you've obviously brought up a very interesting point, given what George Clooney recently said in terms of asking why would any famous person. Oh, he said in a quite popular article recently in Esquire, he said, why would any famous person be on Twitter? For example, and I think what you've highlighted is in China, it's really a completely different purpose. It's really for a conversation.
Well, for me, from my perspective, I don't know what you guys are doing, and I want to know. I know what my neighbor's doing. I know what my sister's doing in Chicago, but I want to know what you guys are doing, and I want to know what I can learn from that.
So would you consider spending more time in China and possibly starring in, films here or television here? Programs
well,
here?
Sure. Like I said, I mean, what we do is, you just want to share it, Otherwise, it's masturbatory.
And there was a time, maybe 10 years ago when Hollywood stars would fly to Japan and film a beer commercial and assume that it would never be seen, anywhere else in the universe. And clearly, that's no longer the case. Right. Do you think that there's a stigma at all about doing product, endorsements here in China? Or do you think now China's kind of risen to a level where they're participating in actually film production and financing? So the idea of being part of a film project in China has maybe not prestige yet, but at least has a level of respect?
Well, Adam probably has a better answer for this than me, but as far as the internet killed all that, growing up in the U.S., you didn't know that, I don't know, I'm making an example of Harrison Ford. I don't know if that's fair or not, that he would do beer commercials in Thailand or China or, internet made it worldwide. You saw that stuff. And you saw that it was not embarrassing. You saw that it was for the greater good if someone had done their research for their product and was truly behind it. And if not, then it was glaringly clear that they were just having a payday. Yeah, I don't know if that answers. Like I said, Adam could probably answer better than I.
I think that's exactly right. I think for an artist from today's perspective, if Johnny was ever going to do anything here, it needs to fit him. It needs to be something that he would do if it were in the U.S. It needs to make sense, and the assumption going in always needs to be that it's going to be seen by the rest of the world, and you can't go in with any other expectation.
And is this part of your role here, working with your partners, is to help them navigate whether it's local product endorsements or larger global sponsorship deals that originate in China? Is this part of what you hope to achieve with Fincitong?
Absolutely. It's a way for us to monetize our business and to add value to the artists. And in a lot of instances, it's really just facilitating communication and facilitating an ability to cross the language and cultural barrier. And in a lot of instances, brands here may not know how to reach Johnny. And even if they do, they may not know how to put together a transaction for him and then manage that transaction in a way that's going to be smooth for both parties. So I think our role is really very much a facilitator in terms of sort of knocking down those cultural and communication barriers. So.
And Johnny has...
That said, real quick, I much to the chagrin and frustration to a lot of the people I work with, you know, there's a saying in America that your dollar is worth more than your vote, and I subscribe to that. And, you know, whether it's, you know, buying a pair of gym shoes, or I look into it, I do my research, and it's easy to do now on the internet, and know what companies are owned by who, and where that product comes from. And so if I was ever to get behind something in a commercial way, God knows that I would have done my homework on that company.
Yes, and I think that makes the partnership stronger with the brand. The fact that the endorser himself truly uses or understands or believes in the product.
If not, then nice knowing you.
Then you shouldn't be doing it. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So is there anything from this trip that you'll take back and perhaps even influence or inspire some part of your character in this show?
Oh my God, well, I mean, that's the only reason to travel. We were talking last night about my good friend Lewis Black, and he made a wonderful, beautiful, very poetic point once, and saying, you know, when you travel, it's not really what you experience when you're there. It's what the new eyes that you come home with, and how it's influenced you, and how it will change your life once you come home. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get home and see my my home and my life through the eyes that I've experienced here in China.
And longevity is obviously something that really your career has been built on. You know, a lot of the viewers now in China may, through your show now, you know, actually go back through and see the incredible work that you've put together over the past 20-something years, including myself, obviously, having seen a lot of your work, spanning back a couple of decades. So I think this is a very exciting time, and we thank you both for coming in and joining us on Thought
Thanks for having us.
That wraps it up for today. Be sure to subscribe to us on Youku, Tudo, and YouTube. You can also follow us on Weibo and Twitter, and join our LinkedIn group. We'll see you again.